Welcome to the Brand Champions Mixtape, a compilation of our favourite marketing subjects in a short, break-sized podcast. I'm Fee, I'm the CEO.
And I'm Kerry from Brand Champions. So each week we're going to be bringing 3 fab pieces of content to you, or maybe not each week, but as often as we can do it. That'll be one controversial fact or piece of news that we want to talk about. We'll be talking about our Friday ad for the week, and then one juicy bit of news that we just want to chat over as well.
So this week's controversial topic is outdoor advertising is not worth investing in anymore. I personally have a soft spot for outdoor advertising because this is one of the very first campaigns I ever worked on as an assistant brand manager, was to launch a hair care brand. So I have a real passion for this. What do you think about outdoor advertising, Kerry?
I think if you look at people like Netflix, who have just spent $150 million on out of home, I think it proves that this statement is absolutely incorrect. The stats and actually tech from nowadays, you can report on out of home more than you ever could before. And I think, like, with all the stuff we look at, we've seen incredible out of home that just grab you and sort of just, bring you into the brand straight away. And I'm sure you've got some fab examples, like what we chat about Specsavers a lot. Like, their out of home is amazing.
I was taken aback when I got to Oxford Street last week and the IKEA.
The massive bag.
Yeah, there's a huge bag with candles hanging over it. And I thought that was just visually so arresting. I think it does work for brands that are really well known. It's a really hard media to launch for brands that aren't known as well, because you've got a very tight space to get your message across, right? So for me personally, I would say it works for those brands that are really well known and have got enough money to spend across different media so that you can get that message, or you can have different messages. But I think it's a really hard choice if you're a startup or you haven't got an awful lot of money. The campaigns tend to run for a couple of weeks burst as well. So you might have a really short spike of sales. But again, getting that longevity and getting that consistent brand awareness is quite tricky if you're not pairing it with other media or quite a heavy presence in digital.
Yeah, and that's probably where the data comes into play, right? Because if you're a small brand, what you need to do is make sure you've got your data right, you've got your insight right, and you're putting your content in the right place, as opposed to sort of scattergun approach or in the wrong place completely. Like, if you're a small brand and you want to try it, you need to make sure you've got that data and that insight down to a fine detail to be able to make it sort of earn its money in a way.
Yeah, and it's a lot less than investing in a TV campaign. You're looking at kind of 80% less than spending on TV. So that's got to be a good thing for those type of brands. Agree with you. But when you're doing marketing by committee and everyone's adding in, no, we must talk about this, we must put an offer in. We've just seen the latest British Airways.
I was going to say that.
Which has literally got no messages on and is incredible visually but you don't need it. You instantly know what that brand is. So I think there are some really, really good examples. I mean, obviously here at BC, we're huge fans of humour. Got some great stats on 56% of customers will talk about funny out of home that they have seen. Kerry, you were obviously on the Surreal poster yourself.
Oh my god, I was. I am an out of home star. Yes,
you're an out of home star. Yeah. So we can't not mention that.
I mean, Surreal are great, right? Because their costs can't be that high. They play it quite funny. The production can't be that high. It's all kind of clip art. So they're doing it well. I think they're doing it really well. And I think you've got some other great examples. Like, one of my absolute favourites is the BBC Dracula one. I don't know if you remember, I was talking about this before, but it's got like pins coming out of it. So, and where it's placed, as the sun moves, the shadow of Dracula appears on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, like, pieces like that are just absolute genius.
And now you can get these really immersive experiences. We obviously looked at the Nike one, didn't we?
Yeah.
And there's been some that you always get coming up on Instagram and YouTube and those kind of channels that you can really see people being pulled into, and they're quite a spectacle now, aren't they?
And I think with the rise of social, obviously, like, you are pulling like the people seeing that out of home are pushing it out to other people.
Yeah.
So, from like 20 years ago where there was no Instagram and Facebook and all that sort of stuff, stories, people weren't sharing this stuff. But now it's like, this is amazing. And people are going to these places to, like the IKEA bag, for example, all over social. People
Yeah.
want to talk about it. And now you've got like AI generated out of home being created as well, which is just throwing another kind of level of excitement and creativity on top. AI is another thing we need to talk about, but yeah, I just think for the right brands, like you say, it's definitely worth doing.
But for us, then outdoor advertising is definitely worth investing in if you have thought about getting your insight right, the right data, not putting too many messages on it, and you've got a kind of full brand mix of stuff happening, then yeah, definitely got some great impact, some great memorability, some great driving awareness initiatives that clearly we can remember. So yes, it's a yes from us, definitely not a no.
Yeah, agree.
Let's talk about our Friday ad this week because it's one that quite often comes up. We're obviously huge fans here of real beauty and real life, and we've got some brands playing in that space ourselves. But let's talk about the Dove AI new Friday ad campaign. What do you think?
We need to talk about the fact that this is a 20-year campaign that Dove is celebrating this year. So before loads of us were even on the kind of, loads of brands were on the real beauty kind of movement. Dove have had it at the core of everything they do for 20 years. So I think, firstly, hands up to them for kind of being so consistent with that messaging for 20 years and really providing a platform for people to realise actually, beauty is not the AI generated imagery that we're seeing. When I saw that ad, I just felt absolute fear at the start for the generation that is growing up now. And it makes me want to support Dove because what they're doing is great. And I know, obviously, Fee, you've got a young daughter in her teens, and you must have watched that and just thought, oh God.
You know what? I thought it was the one before really got me when they stripped all the makeup and it went backwards. That was the one that really kind of jarred with me. But I thought this one was so simple and effective and felt like a really nice transition from the last ad. And I think it does hammer home a really great message, but just in such a calm and clear way. It's not really kind of terrifying, but like you say, the story behind it, the insight is terrifying. So yeah, I think it's really well done. I agree with you. I think it's horrific where we think about what teens are having as kind of normal, especially in the beauty stakes, and they're surrounded by that. We used to say we were surrounded by people looking good all the time, and they're even more surrounded by it, almost by the fact that they're constantly taking photos of themselves on Snapchat, if they're like my daughter, and looking at other images of other people.
But I think for Dove to be able to go out and say, look, this is what AI puts forward, but actually, if you mix that with what we've put forward for the last 20 years, this is what real beauty looks like. It's just such a great message.
And they will stand by that. That's genuine. Like I think it's really unlikely that Dove will get caught out from using wrong images. I really think their values are very aligned with that. So yeah, thumbs up from us for this week's Friday ad. We love that one. And then finally, you've been to a brilliant event this week. You've been to Rise by Creative Equals. The lineup looked amazing. Tell us briefly, what were the highlights? What went on?
Oh my God, I have to say, it's one of the best events I've ever been to. Like, just sat absolutely engaged in every session. You know what I really liked? Just to go back to the actual kind of the way they did it. It was so interesting because they did like one person talking, two people, then there was like a fireside chat, then there was like a 5-minute blitz conversation. I just thought that was great. So well done to Creative Equals for keeping it really fresh. But I just think, going on from the real beauty thing, there was a session where a lady called Rachel was talking about the manosphere, and how important it is for us to not leave men out of the story now.
Yeah.
And that really was quite an interesting conversation, and it was quite a scary conversation because there were some really dark stats in there. And she was talking about her brother that had been lost in the world of the kind of masculine man, and actually what was the kind of statement that I took away from that, there was a line she said about the beauty has always been the kind of pressure for women over the years, whereas success has always been the pressure for men.
Yeah.
And then we moved to a session with Dr. Rachel from Getty Images, which was incredibly interesting because it was images of men from the 30s to like now, and how it's changed. It's gone from like the man coming home from work, the man being lovely to his wife, then it was the man in his pants basically, and they've just got more naked from there on. So that was really interesting from the male point of view, but I think there were some really great stats that is worth kind of pulling out from the day around DE&I, and the whole session was around return on inclusion. So what happens if a brand really includes people. So there was a stat there around 70% of people want women to be in more progressive roles on TV ads. Only 38% of our ads have people of colour in them, which is much better than America, by the way, which is only 18%. 57% of us think brands should talk about DEI more, so diversity, equity and inclusion. And by doing all of this and having people with disabilities in your adverts, having audio description on your adverts, having people of colour, people of the queer community, it has a massive impact on sales. And it was like a 33% brand equity by doing this. And it's just such little things that we can do as brand, people working with brands in the marketing world to help push that messaging. So yeah, it was great. I think it was definitely really worth going to, and some of the stats, like I say, were just incredible.
One of my favourite ads, can't remember if this year or last, but imagine a CEO, is it a man?
Oh yes, yeah. Imagine a doctor, is it a man? Yeah. Exactly that.
Imagine a nurse, is it a woman? All of those, I loved that campaign. I thought they did a great job. But yeah, agree. We said the same at our own event, didn't we? That this is the start of the conversation. We know there's a lot more way to go, but actually things are changing, things are improving, and that's good. I know the results are worrying, but that's good that it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me that audio description thing is such an easy win for brands. Like everyone like who works in a TV ads should just be getting that switched on and sorted for all of their campaigns, because I think it's great. It's such an easy win, but massive impact. So yeah, definitely. It was great to hear that messaging of authenticity and space echoing from our session in March as well.
So if you went to Rise, we would love to hear what you think, what your key highlights were as well. But that sounds like one we'll definitely be putting on our agenda for next year.
Definitely.
Session.
We should have kept it low so we could have got tickets. But yeah, we'll definitely be there next year. It was a great one. It was a great one. And so, yeah, I guess that's the end of our first podcast. So a quick chat about out of home. Thumbs up from us. Quick chat about our Friday ad. Thumbs up from all of us. Rise Creative Equals, definitely a thumbs up. So a very positive first podcast.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining us.